Well, welcome everyone to Community Impact Chronicles. My name is Allison Parham Small. I am the host. So happy for you to join us. Just a little bit about my background. I started my own consulting firm back in 1994, and we specialize in providing training, consulting services to advance clients, to help them advance their mission and impact in communities. We have been very fortunate to work with organizations all across the country, and just so excited today because we have another organization that we want to lift up. Just a couple of announcements. Yes, the BIPOC Summit is almost here. Um, Tomorrow, we will launch the registration for the second annual BIPOC Summit, Community Empowerment Summit. We are so excited this year because we are bringing a host of resource providers, leaders from the community together with this theme of transforming our communities together. So please mark your calendar for this event. And again, the registration will open tomorrow. In addition, I think I mentioned on our last podcast that we would schedule a financial management series for grassroots organizations, and we've done that. The series will be April 11th, April 30th, and then we have one more in the series that will be scheduled in March. And this is really designed for grassroots organizations who are really just trying to get a handle on what does it mean when we talk about a financial management system. Are you in QuickBooks? Are you using Excel? What do you need to have in place as you look to bring on more donors? You want to go after additional grants. This financial management series has been developed just for you. So we're really excited about this particular series coming up. So today I want to talk and share and have a great conversation with two wonderful women that I've known over the years. As you know, our focus on this podcast is to lift up organizations working in the community, really making a difference in the lives of families. And there's no other person that I can think of to follow Janet Mackins from our session last month, but Cecilia Whitfield, who is the founder and executive director of Use What You've Got. And along with Cecilia, we always believe in having nonprofit leaders to share their story, but we also want to offer little tidbits and tips and tricks from some of our consultants who actually work with these nonprofits. And so my dear sister friend, Cheryl Francis, is going to join us today, and she's got some exciting tips to share around board governance. So we're going to take a break, and when I come back, we will have Miss Cecilia Whitfield, and we'll learn more about Use What You've Got. Stay tuned.
Too many women die every year due to pregnancy-related complications. 2/3 of these deaths are preventable. As healthcare professionals, we play a critical role in making sure women's health concerns are addressed during and after pregnancy. Help your patients understand the warning signs and when they should seek care. Actively listen when she raises concerns. It could save her life. Hear her.
I am so excited to bring on Miss Cecilia Whitfield. Cecilia and I go back, I think when we first started providing training to nonprofits in the Indianapolis area, Cecilia was always there at all of the training. Cecilia is the founder of the organization Use What You Got Ministry. And she has been doing this for 35 years. And I think when you hear her story, it is just totally inspiring. She has an associate's and bachelor's degree. But Cecilia, one of the things that I learned about you today, which I did not know, was that she's been married for 53 and a half years. And what a blessing. Cecilia, welcome to Community Impact Chronicles. Well, we got a little applause going on there. Um, and Cecilia, I think I want to just kind of jump in because I know a good part of your story, but maybe if you could tell the audience, what was your inspiration for starting your organization?
Well, my inspiration was my son. In 1988, he graduated from one of the top private schools, Bishop Shatar High School, and that was in June. And by August of 1988, he had committed armed robbery and was facing 40 years of prison time. And I just could not believe this was happening to me. And I was asking myself the question, why me? My kids had grown up in private school. They've been in church all their life. Why did this happen to me? Because I know how we get talked about. The families are the hidden victims. So the depression, the shame, the hurt, the embarrassment that we go through as a family who have someone, and he made the newspaper. He was in the newspaper. And at that time, I was working at AT&T, what was Indiana Bell, but most people don't know about Indiana Bell, so I had to say AT&T, unless you're old. Then you know about Indiana Bell Telephone Company. And I had to go to work and face those people, knowing that they had read the newspaper that my son had committed armed robbery with a shotgun. So the inspiration came as I was visiting with him and another young man. Families were always asking to ride. And one day they asked so many times, and my daughter was visiting, riding with me. And my daughter said, well, Mama, why do they keep asking that question to us? I said, I have no idea. And finally, one day I asked one of the ladies, it was a wife, and I said, well, doesn't this state offer transportation for us? Because my son's facing 40 years. And the answer was no. There's no transportation for the families or the friends of an incarcerated loved one. So I was driving home, and I'm just going to be honest. As I was driving, the Lord spoke to me and said, start a prison shuttle bus service.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, okay. So I'm an only child. And I went home and I said, Mama, the Lord said, start a prison shuttle bus service. I said, but Mama, I only have a general diploma. And I wasn't smart in high school because I couldn't take all that math. I just have a general diploma. I don't know what to do. And my mother said, oh, just use what you got. I said, oh.
and that started it, didn't it?
That started it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, tell me, so you started this organization. What were some of the challenges you faced in running a nonprofit and then having this commitment to help families? Like what was probably your biggest challenge that you faced?
Well, number one, I knew nothing, and trying to learn how to raise funds because I went into this using my own money.
Okay.
So I really didn't know. I didn't know anything. So those were my challenges, trying to learn about nonprofit. The other challenge was trying to understand about transportation because I was just a clerk. So I had to learn everything about transportation and learn just different things about the nonprofit world.
Oh, okay.
So, yes.
And you've done well. Why don't you tell folks what are some of your key programs and services that you offer families?
Well, because I was really going by my need for what I needed because there was no resources for me. I knew absolutely nothing about anything. So I started a women's retreat. I started taking mothers away because it was a network. It was my piece when I was able to help other mothers and grandmothers like myself we started, that was the women's retreat. We did that. I brought in professional people that had their master's degree to work with us and to teach us and help us
Mhm.
to deal with our problems, our pain, our depression. And then later, I started a Christmas party.
Mm.
As I did all the driving for 19 years, and I would take a lot of the mothers home because back then they had visitations in the evening. So I would take a lot of those families home and the children, and I could see the need and the pain of the moms and the children going home. So we started a Christmas party
Oh, wow.
program. And my husband and I, we bought the toys, we bought the clothes, and we had it at a location. So that was the other program. And then later I learned about life skills. So
Okay.
we started the life skills program. And just recently we received a grant through the Indianapolis Foundation. And so we're working on Journey to a New Life,
Mm.
helping to reduce the violence and recidivism, because we do know that visitation reduces recidivism rate 13%. So
Oh,
just one visit will reduce the recidivism rate 13%. And our recidivism rate that was done by IUPUI, we were 27, our recidivism rate was 27% lower than the whole Marion County. And I knew nothing about what I was doing, but keeping them connected helped.
keeping them connected. So today, let's fast forward. You mentioned you have an Indianapolis Foundation elevation grant, which
Yes.
so happy to hear. They are a major sponsor of our work with organizations. Um, what are some of the other ways in which you raise funds to support your work?
Well, we have I started a breakfast years ago, so we have a informational breakfast to say thank you to our donors and to keep them informed of the things that we have been doing down through the years. I started a dinner years ago, and we honor people that have been supported to us and community leaders. And of course, this year we would like to honor Miss Allison Small
Oh,
because and Cheryl Francis, because I wouldn't have made it. And I'm just gonna be
my goodness.
honest. I wouldn't have made it because the management skills, I'm a doer. The management skills that Cheryl has brought to me, the capacity. She taught me about Google Drive. And when we met, she said, I don't want any more of that stuff on those flash drives. Well, I had a lot of flash drive. And she said, I want you to get all that stuff off the flash drive and put it on Google Drive. So I had to go to Ivy Tech so they could help me because I didn't know what a Google Drive was. But she is just amazing.
Mhm.
But it always takes a person to lights didn't start by themselves.
Right.
There was the phone the phone. They didn't start by themselves. It took a person with a vision. You had the vision to help people like me who only had the general diploma, who didn't ever. I was content to be a clerk at Indiana Bell. I
Mm.
didn't want to be over folks. I didn't take management leadership. I didn't do that. I really wanted. So I thought, okay, you started the only thing that has been a blessing in my life to help me to understand what I'm really doing when, besides just driving a bus, but how to manage the logistics and the logic models. I didn't even heard of a logic model till I met Cheryl. So you are such a blessing. I attend everything that you do because I know I'm going to learn something new. And we have to be continuous learners.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's
you
right.
doing that.
Well, that caught me off guard there. I wasn't expecting that. But, it is always so exciting to watch organizations that over the years that are growing and thriving, and and our goal is to make sure organizations are sustainable. And but the reality is that for 35 years you have been doing this work, so we really are just kind of coming behind you and just making sure that you continue on for as many years as you desire, until you probably turn the reins over to someone else. But I have a question for you, Cecilia. As you have been on this journey, when you think about, there are so many people that are thinking about starting a nonprofit, or maybe they're in the beginning stages. Given your experiences, what would you share as some key takeaways or things for people to consider, before they jump on the journey of starting a nonprofit?
I would tell them that, first of all, because I'm a minister, they have to pray. Second, I would advise them to reach out to an amazing organization that will train them the capacity part that they don't have any ideas. Parte Consulting Group would be the one that I would advise anyone to be a part of, to have the right consultant that really care about them and to give them the right directions, because there are so many people out here, they really have they're really not concerned. But you and Cheryl and your group have trained us, and you care. So the main thing is you have to be around people who really care and want and have your best interest. That's important, and that would be the main thing. Find an amazing, and my recommendation would be this group right here. Start right there.
Cecilia, you're going to have people thinking like, oh, she had her on there just to say that. I had no idea that she's going to get there. But we are here to serve, and so happy that you've been able to take advantage of the things that we offer. So we are going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk to Cheryl, who Cecilia has been referencing all this time. So you'll get a chance to meet Cheryl, and then I'm going to bring both of them back, and they can explain a little bit about how they've worked together over this past year. So Cecilia, thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be bringing you back. But thank you for sharing your story. I'm sure people will be inspired to know that, if you have that vision, you can work towards it. So hold tight. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be back. Thank you.
We all know the warning signs of a stroke. We use the acronym Be Fast. T stands for time. Time is critical for stroke patients. The sooner we start the assessment of the patient, the sooner we can deliver medications to help stop the stroke and the damage that it does. When 911 isn't called, stroke care doesn't start until the patient arrives at the hospital. Now let's look at scenario 2, calling 911 immediately at the first signs of a stroke. Stroke care starts as soon as EMS arrives to you. EMS personnel quickly assess the patient to confirm stroke symptoms and time of symptom onset. They also obtain a health history and establish an IV. Most importantly, EMS will alert the hospital that a stroke patient is coming. The EMS responders communicate vital information to our emergency department so that the stroke response team can be activated prior to your arrival. Responding promptly to stroke symptoms is essential because the chances of survival and recovery are greater when emergency treatment is quickly received. Please call 911 at the first sign of a stroke. Time loss is brain loss.
Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited to bring on Cheryl Francis. And I think we're waiting for, there she is. And let me just say, Cheryl and I go back many years. I won't tell you the number of years because then somebody might try to calculate our age, and a lady never tells. But needless to say, we have worked together for a long time. And Cheryl is one person who I think it is clear what she is passionate about. She is not bashful in any way of her love for particularly grassroots organizations. And so it has been a, excuse me, a complete joy. But Cheryl is not new to this work. She has been working in this field for over 35 plus years. In a variety of capacities, whether executive director, she's worked in philanthropy, she's worked in government, you name it. Cheryl has either worked in that space or has consulted in that space. And so it made common sense to me when we were pulling this team together to begin doing more work in Indiana that I would tap Cheryl to help us with this work. And so, Cheryl, welcome to Community Impact Chronicles. Oh, you're muted. Oh, so she's gonna unmute.
Here we go.
There you go. Well,
Allison, thank you for that wonderful introduction, and I'm delighted to speak with your audience today. You are reminding me why I do this work. So for me, this is my legacy career because I am ageless, and there was such wisdom that resulted from this practitioner work all these years. I've also been a board member. And so I enjoy being a consultant, a coach, a trainer, sharing the wisdom, kind of pouring in the wisdom to BIPOC nonprofit leaders.
yeah. Well, so Cheryl, you and I have had many a conversation about this, but I thought it would be helpful to have you share. One of the things we always talk about is when we're dealing with smaller organizations, just some of the challenges associated with board governance. And some folks are just struggling to get 3 people on the board, and then it's kind of like, well, what do you do once you have the board? And so just given your experiences and working with boards of all sizes, what are some of the common challenges you see, particularly in the space of board governance?
So I did prepare these slides, but it's important to know that every board is unique, and it's really important for the executive leaders of the organizations to curate the board and how it functions based on a framework that is provided by many nonprofit leaders that have gone before us. And Board Source is a really good way to find out what the frameworks, what the best practices are. Just from what I have experienced, a lot of boards are simply unprepared. Board members lack the clarity about expectations for their roles. They're happy to be tapped and to be engaged, but oftentimes there's no formal onboarding, bringing new board members aboard, and there's not ongoing training that's necessary to level up or elevate their understanding of the role. Moreover, an annual review of board performance, I think, would help identify what are some of the training needs after people have been on the board for a while. First dysfunction is that board members are unprepared. Second is that board members tend to micromanage because they don't understand the division of labor between the board and the staff functions. Again, there's a lack of clarity about policy making and a lack of understanding that the board acts as a collective. It's not the individual board member's decision, but it's the board functioning as a group that represents the community. And then the third dysfunction has to do with accountability. We've all heard horror stories about conflict of interest, where board members have special interests and they're blinded by other concerns as they act out their special interests. More passively, boards acting as a rubber stamp to the staff and the executive director does not contribute to accountability. And oftentimes it limits the kind of engagement and generative discussion that's absolutely necessary for policymaking. And a lot of boards just simply fear dissent. There's another accountability factor that I added since I developed this slide is accountability relative to resource development. In many instances, board members don't accept the responsibility of raising funds, not only funds, but friends for the organization. Sponsoring and supporting the organization is critically important.
You know, Cheryl, it's interesting that you say that. But hold on, Mark, not this slide yet. I just want to talk to Cheryl for a second. When we talk about some of the accountability issues, one of the things that we are starting to hear more is that people have this understanding that board members should be compensated, and that that becomes a motivation for people to get on the boards, particularly as they are seeing some of the grassroots organizations starting to become more successful in winning grants. And I don't know if you've heard that. I know we've heard it and we talk about it, but what's your take on that? Board
On the
members being compensated.
Actually, the board is the chief source of volunteers and non-paid members, because there is a stewardship around resources that should be separated out from direct compensation. We know there's a model in the corporate sector of board compensation, but I like the neutrality of not having resources come directly from the organization, with the exception of small reimbursements for travel or other means. So I'm not necessarily in favor of board compensation.
Well, board governance is so important, particularly as organizations do begin to scale. And so let's pull up your other slide, and maybe you could then walk through some of the tips that you've come up with when organizations find themselves in one or more of these categories.
Well, I think Cecilia's point about having a thought partner, having a consultant, somebody who's also dedicated to building the capacity of the governance component of the organization is a bit of wisdom and a bit of her genius. But it also often starts with board members having a contract or an agreement that outlines expectations for their work. And that agreement is a way to let board members know what the time commitment involves, what the level of energy associated with board engagement involves as well. Moreover, in addition to the contract or a board agreement, having ongoing training for the board, not just during the onboarding period for new board members, but continuous training is recommended, and a moment where the board itself steps back and asks, have we met the expectations of the organization? So that the board itself is going through an annual assessment, and from that assessment, developing an action plan so as to elevate its performance.
Okay.
So other tips related to micromanaging, I think, evolved from that initial notion of board training. Clearly define roles relative to the function of the board as opposed to the function of the executive director. That division of labor is absolutely important and almost sacred in order for the organization to function effectively. And what seals the deal is establishing how board members will communicate directly to the board chair, and how the staff will communicate directly to the executive director, so that the board chair and executive director communication is the single communication that ensures that board members are heard and that staff members' concerns are absolutely taken into consideration. And then finally, when it comes to accountability, some tips has to do with really clarifying what is policy making and what is decision making. and really establishing the fiduciary, strategic, and generative roles of the board. And it's real clear that people get really involved oftentimes in the fiduciary functions, usually around money, but they don't consider the strategic role, planning for the future of the organization, setting the direction for the organization, and then the desire to be more generative. Some boards actually change the priority at meetings so that the agenda is not a series of reports by the staff, but rather enough time is left for generative discussion by the board on topical areas that are on the forefront for the organization.
Wow. So when you look at your experience with these organizations, and not to put you on the spot, but I guess I will, because we're hoping you will be a part of the summit and we'll go a little deeper with orgs around board governance, because we realize that that's one of those topics where people don't think about it until there's a problem, and then they're scrambling to try to rectify it. And so, have you seen an example in your work with organizations where the board kind of got it and the light bulb went off and they started to understand their role to lead the organization? Maybe share an example if you have one.
So I had a wonderful experience with Westside Housing, which is a community development corporation in Kansas City, Missouri. They, I would consider to be beyond startup, but not quite mature as a board. They had functioned in kind of an undifferentiated manner. So we came in and looked at what would level up this board and make it more generative. So some of the things that we used include offering a mission moment at every board meeting, reminding the board of what the mission of the organization is and what it stands for in terms of the programmatic offerings and services of the organization. Beyond that, we developed a metric so that the board will understand its fiduciary responsibilities in terms of the number of days of cash that the organization had on hand. And so that became a barometer for the well-functioning of the organization and its grant-making and contractual obligations. And thirdly, equity was an issue. They wanted very much a diverse board. It was in a Mexican community, but Kansas City was changing demographically, and they recognized that many of their residents, their clients, were African American, and there was no representation on the board. So ultimately, within a particular time frame, with an understanding of term limits and board succession, we did identify an African American banker who came aboard. And so now the board is a little more representative of the community.
Oh, nice, nice. The thing about board governance is that there's never a point in when you fix it and then you never look back. It is always ongoing, just as, always looking at organizations and how do you move it to the next level. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for sharing your tips with folks around board governance. Hopefully people took note of that. And if you want to go back to our YouTube channel, you can, and you can play this over again. But if you want to meet Cheryl in person, she will be at the BIPOC Summit on April 19th. And then you can ask her all the questions about board governance and then some. Cheryl is just a wealth of knowledge in this space. So we're going to take another break, and then I want to conclude our segment today by bringing both Cheryl and Cecilia back together to talk about their experience in working together, what's that's like, lessons that they may have learned. So stay tuned for our final segment. We'll be right back.
Being a parent, especially for the first time, with that comes a lot of self-doubt. As a dad, I just try to lead by example. When you're trying to be the best person that you can be, your kids see that and then they emulate that.
So we've got Cheryl and Cecilia together again. And so I think you two, have you been working together? Has it been a year?
Yeah.
Because you started in the dive and now you're in thriving. And for folks who don't know the acronyms, it's just ways in which we categorize different cohorts, organizations that we work with. And so I'm going to start with Cecilia. And just to say briefly, what was it like when you first got notice that you were being assigned to Cheryl? I know you didn't know her, from Adam, but what was that like for you to be assigned a consultant to work with you for a period of several months?
Well, I was very excited to have a consultant because, Cheryl know I'm a big crybaby. I am. She knows me very well. But I never would have thought that I would have somebody who cared. And she has put everything, all of her energy into helping me. She knows my background. She knows where I've come from. There's no secrets. And any corrections that she see I need to make, she makes sure that those things are done. She, like I said, the Google Drive. And she said, you got to get all that stuff off of, and then she went the infrastructure, about do you have insurance and all the infrastructure things that no one had ever asked about. And we built a database so she would know exactly where we are, what we're doing. She gives good direction. She's an excellent leader. We meet on time, we end on time, and sometimes the thing about what I love about her, when I get a little depressed, I'll call her, and she never say no, I'm busy or anything. I don't care if it's late in the evening, early in the morning. Cheryl, and she'll talk with me, and she'll keep me focused, and like she told me, she said, now think nice things today. Say nice things. Because sometimes I'm a little hard on myself because it's been a struggle to be the only nonprofit transportation in the state of Indiana, because we didn't have anybody to go and ask or give us instructions or direction. I have anybody. Everything that we've done, it's been created. Now Cheryl has helped me to come up with how the leadership, the management, that those things that I've never even thought about, because I'm a doer and I just do stuff myself. But these other things that she's bringing up, plans, project plans and timelines and logic models, things I've never even thought of, that I've never even heard of in my life. And she's bringing all those detailed things that a leader and an executive, I'm just a mother. I didn't go to school to be a leader. I really didn't want to do a leader. I just wanted to do what I like to do. I like to do stuff like this. I've done fashion shows and things like that. But she's making me and grooming me into a real leader and an executive director, because those are things I just, I never even thought of about how to do it. So she's amazing. She's very kind. She's very patient with us. We're close in age, so we get along real well. We're like sisters.
Nice. Well, Cheryl, let me switch to Cheryl. And I think this is where you first started working with us on Deep Dive. And I know you had maybe about 3 or 4 organizations that you were working with. And so what has that been like? Kind of you come in, I can't remember. I think you did have 3 or 4 right off the bat. Cecilia was one. But what has that journey been like for you in working with organizations that that are, are looking to make an investment in their own organizational infrastructure?
Well, Cecilia characterized our relationship, and let me just say that investing in a relationship is vitally important.
Mhm.
We spend time building trust, and learning a little bit about each other, our passions, and what made us tick. And that resulted, I think, in getting more work done.
Mhm.
What made Cecilia distinctive was her level of responsiveness. And that's not to say the other groups were not responsive, but when I offered a tip or a piece of advice or a tool to Cecilia, she embraced it. And she embraced it with a kind of energy that let me know that she was connecting the dots. She
Okay.
understood how this tool connected to her work, her leadership, her board. It connected in some way. And moreover, what Cecilia is known for is taking the tool, taking the resource, and magnifying it. So
Mhm.
she will take that and she will share it with her board. She will share it with her staff. She'll even take it to legislators. So we developed a letter of appeal and a pitch, and Cecilia has gone beyond expectations in terms of making sure that her organization is known. She's used that pitch with faith-based organizations, with political types, with university types. So she takes whatever we work on and she just applies it in such a phenomenal way, that she's an inspiration to me. Absolutely an inspiration.
Well, I think the two of you, sometimes when we convene some of the organizations together, it's kind of funny when people start talking about how much they really enjoy working with their consultant. And Cecilia's always rooting for Cheryl, and so now there's a little competition going on with some of the other consultants. But I think the common denominator in all of this is commitment on the part of the leader to dive into, working to strengthen their infrastructure, and then having committed and knowledgeable consultants who are willing to roll up their sleeves and really engage and have conversation, and listen to the organizations, not bringing all the answers, but working together to come up with solutions that work for the best interest of that organization. And I think the two of you really kind of really reflect what the relationships that we desire for all of the organizations we work with. And so I thank both of you for joining us today. You really inspire me to continue to do this work and to share your story. And Cecilia, you just keep on moving, and it's just it truly is an inspiration. And I think I'm gonna have to start calling you Dr. Whitfield, because I feel like you have an honorary doctorate in just being in the trenches and doing the work, right? And just imagine the number of families that you've impacted. So for that, we thank you for all of what you do in this state to impact the lives of so many families. And then Cheryl, I love you. And keep on doing what you do. Love that you're working with us. But I do thank both of you, and I'm assuming I'm going to see you both at the summit in April, uh, April 19th. Um, but that is it for our show today. And again, thank you, Cecilia Whitfield and Cheryl Francis, for joining me today. You'll be able to see this out on YouTube and wherever else they send it on social media. Have a wonderful week. And I look forward to seeing both of you soon at the summit. And with that,
Thank
everyone,
you.
have a great evening.
Thank you.